yourself for a journey into the unknown. The Haunter's Tale podcast, where every whisper, every shadow is a doorway to fear.
Let me welcome you to the show. Everybody, this is my good friend, Mark Muncy. How are you, Mark?
Great, gang. As I like to say on our podcast, greetings, travelers. And that's how we do it for the Eerie Travels podcast. But so excited to be here. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's great. I've been wanting to have you on the show since the idea ever happened. So Mark, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you? Kind of the overview, and then we'll get into the specifics, especially when you were a kid and actually had the perfect gateway into this world. But tell everybody
Yeah.
a little bit about you and your books and everything like that.
For those people who are going, hey, I know that guy. I'm Mark Muncy. I'm an author. Sold and wrote the best-selling books Eerie, Florida, Freaky, Florida, Creepy, Florida, and then I ran out of adjectives, and they finally let me out of the state, and I got to do Eerie, Appalachia. And but you probably know me for about a minute and a half on Ancient Aliens, and about 2 minutes on Finding Bigfoot, and then the Curse of Robert the Doll documentary on the Travel Channel. So those are my big credits, and now I run the Eerie Travels podcast.
And those are gigantic credits. Robert the Doll is still one of the most terrifying ideas and artifacts, or what would you call it? Just an object, right? It's
He's
just a
he's
doll.
he's Robert. He is the best boy. You don't talk bad about Robert. Robert is the bestest. We love him. I had to do the documentary with him. It was a lot of fun. It was very cool because they had a stunt Robert for the reenactments, and it was actually made by the Jim Henson Company. So the guy who played Robert for stunt Robert, he was an official Muppeteer, and he had this case with mini Robert, stunt Robert in it. But what was cool is his card is like lists all the Muppets he's allowed to be, and one of the ones was Uncle Deadly, one of my favorite Muppets of all
Oh
time.
wow.
But then right there
Uncle
at the
Deadly
bottom,
is Uncle Deadly is Robert the doll.
yeah, well, no, and then down at the bottom was Robert the Doll is now officially a Muppet. So, well, stunt
Uh,
Robert. So,
well then, and for those that don't know who Robert the doll is, if you've ever, it's Key West, right?
yeah, Key West, he's still down there, despite what some of the television shows say that he went to a museum in Vegas. No, he's in Key West. He will always be there. He doesn't leave unless there's a hurricane. Then he goes to a friend of Robert, and I'm a friend of Robert. We're Site K. If he comes to us, basically Florida's underwater. Uh, but uh, but Robert is the last chapter of Eerie, Florida, available at fine bookstores and Cracker Barrels everywhere. Uh, but uh, but he's he was just a doll. He's the real life inspiration for Chucky, and that's how we go. Technically, he was the real life inspiration for Puppet Master, and the
Mhm.
Puppet Master was the inspiration for Chucky. So that's how it works. But they like to
Wow.
say he's the inspiration for Chucky.
So so tell us about how you got into this world of haunted objects and eerie things and cryptids and the paranormal.
Yeah, my earliest childhood memory is I was grew up in Dayton, Ohio for my first few years of my life, and my only memory of that house. Well, I have two. I have two memories. One was my dad plugging in the Magnavox Odyssey onto the big screen, and we played the haunted house game where you had to put the little plastic on the screen and the static held it on. That's old school video games. But I remember that very vividly. But also one night in that house, which apparently was haunted, I was my oldest memory is me being up in the attic area, which was my playroom. My room was like right down from the attic. It was one of those old German style Sears houses. Yes, Sears sold houses. But you went up. So the attic area was my playroom, and I was up there, and it was just dark shadow figure with red eyes. I still goosebumps just now even saying that.
Wow.
It's me. It just looked at me. And then the next thing I remember is my mom carrying me down the stairs in a hurry. I don't remember much else, but that's there and kept that spooky vibe going, I guess. It triggered something in me.
Wow. So how old were you when you saw this?
Had to be under 6 because we left there when I was 6. So
Wow.
5 or 6.
You remember vividly the red eyes, and then the next thing you remember is being carried by your mom.
Yep. I don't know anything in the
That could
middle.
not be that could not be better written for The Conjuring.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Any of
any
of
horror
those. Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then years later, I was a nerd, 70s. So Star Wars, everything came out. I was in West Virginia, the buckle of the Bible Belt. And Star Wars was a blip. I mean, because they couldn't push it away, but they tried.
Yeah.
But I was reading The Hobbit, I was reading Lord of the Rings, and again, I was like 8 at this point, and they were trying to keep it away from everybody, and it was Satanic Panic. It was actually kind of before that, but it was still there. And the one
Oh,
thing
it was all that's all in that same period.
that
Knights in Satan's service. Uh,
yeah,
the Force is bad.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, what was it? Where the album where the hermit has his staff on the head of a dove if you looked at it wrong, and I
Yeah.
can't remember what that album was, but I remember as people telling me we couldn't watch that out, read that album, but all that, but I was still going every weekend to our family property in Kentucky, which is right on the West Virginia border, and every weekend we'd tell ghost stories or our local cryptid, our local monster, which was the goofy thing that had the head of a man or misshapen head of a man, the body of a big cat or a small cow, and a wooden leg. And it would jump from tree to tree. And if you were a bad person, it would knock you off your horse with its whoop ass stick, the leg there. And it sounds like something out of South Park, right? It's called the bench leg. The terrifying creature's name is the bench leg. And as a kid growing up, I'm like, I want spaceships. I want monsters. I want Frankenstein. I want Dracula. I was reading Famous Monsters of Filmland. That could slip through, right? It wasn't
Barely.
it
Barely.
wasn't satanic. It was movies. That was
Right.
okay. And I don't think the parents understood what that
Yeah.
was. But I'm sneaking some sci-fi in there and all that. So I was
Yeah.
still feeding my inner geek. And then I didn't want that stupid monster. I was out looking for aliens at night, looking for it was dark sky territory, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base isn't too far from there, so we'd see weird things fly overhead,
Oh
and
wow,
I saw,
Project Blue Book
yep,
and Men in Black showing up and yeah.
yep, that's
So
I
this
grew
is
up in the shadow of all that.
yeah, so this is well, Star Wars was 77, but there was this sweet time what you're talking about that I think a lot of us it hit, right? Star Wars gave us the fantastical, but then right here on Earth you started hearing in the 70s, but like with shows In Search of, which is
Yep.
a great show. And but you would hear, the magazines, like I would get Famous Monsters as well, but there would also be UFO magazine
Yeah.
and all these things about UFOs and Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster and things like that. That all seemed to congregate around that time. And you know, so so you're out in the woods hoping to find Chewbacca or a
Yep.
Rhodian or some creature from the cantina. And what
Yep.
happens?
And then while I'm out there, it's late at night, and something startles the horses in the field, and they go running by, and I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like 9 or 10 at this point, and I'm like, all right, something spooked the horses. And I'm like, and I'm all alone out here with my little Red Ryder BB gun. I'm like, that's if it's a bear, I'm just gonna make him angry, if that, he's just gonna laugh at me. But then something comes running by, and it kind of had a glow about it. It was weird. It had that a weird head. I'm not saying it was the bench leg, but it was definitely something I didn't understand. And that's when I
By
said,
yourself.
Yeah, I was all by myself because it's
Oh,
the 70s. Just let the
yeah,
kids run around
yeah,
in the woods. We don't
yeah,
care. And that was my encounter. It lasted seconds. I barely vaguely saw it. I can't tell you what it was, but that 100% I suddenly stopped sci-fi and went head in to ghosts, monsters, and I checked out every Hans Holzer book I could get because those books were allowed.
yeah,
And I started writing this guy.
yeah.
That's Hans Holzer. He wrote 50 books about ghosts, and there's an address for his publisher, and I hand wrote him a letter, and the next thing I know, I got a letter back a few months later, and we started a correspondence, and then I was like super into the Infield poltergeist case from
Sure.
London
Yeah.
because they were little kids, and it
And there
reminded
was a
me
photo. There was like a photo
the
that,
famous photo,
yeah,
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 where the girl's flying across the room.
yeah,
And I'm like, I got to know about. And then there was supposedly a recording of this creepy voice that was in the books I'd read. I had to hear that. I needed to hear
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so I wrote Hans Holzer, and he's like, "Well, I didn't actually investigate this case. There's this couple called the Warrens. They're in Connecticut. They were there, and why don't you write them? Here's their address." So I wrote them, and then the next thing I know, I got an invite to come to their place and to listen to their copy of the tape that they had made, and I could see this music box part of the case. And my dad, bless him, he was a Greyhound bus vice president, so regional vice president. So he would drive me anywhere I needed to go because he could use it as a business trip to go check out a bus station. Remember, it was the 70s, bus stations were everywhere.
Yeah.
And so dad took me to Connecticut, like a 5 hour drive or 6 hour drive from where we were because dad didn't mind driving. That was and so he dropped me off at this old couple's house that we had no phone number, no real contact. We just followed the map directions. And he dropped me off as he went off to go work at the bus station for a couple of hours with this crazy old couple. And I never met, I got to say hi to Ed, but I hung out with Lorraine quite a bit. And she took me into
Okay.
the
Now
room.
I've known you. I don't know,
Yeah,
20 years at least.
long time,
At
long time.
least. This is the first time you have ever told me this story.
Really?
I
Okay.
had no idea. I am a nut for the Warrens. And
Oh,
here's why. Here's why. Um, the Amityville case, right? I remember
yeah,
this vividly. The first time I ever heard of the Warrens was around the Amityville case, right?
yeah.
And for whatever reason, I was staying home from school one day, and I'm an only child. My mom had to go do something, so I am in the house by myself, and the Mike Douglas show is on. And
Yes.
so there's really not much to watch if you're a kid. You can watch like it seemed like this was all that was on was Bewitched, The Price is Right,
Right.
and Mike Douglas. So I'm
Yep.
watching Mike Douglas, and they're talking about the Amityville case, and they have the Warrens on,
Yep.
and they showed this picture that they took in that house of this little boy peeking around the
Yes.
corner. And I remember it so vividly. Like right now, you talk about the red eyes.
Yep.
I remember seeing it in my house alone on a bad TV, and it's still to this day giving me the
Oh yeah.
craziest feelings. I've now looked at the photo and but I never got to meet the Warrens. But it's so crazy to me that you went to their home.
I didn't know who they were. I just was following Hans Holzer told me to go talk to these people.
Oh, that's
Holzer
in
was my
itself.
idol.
Yeah,
You
he's a
know,
legend. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that was
alone, I
Holzer
knew
was my
that.
idol. I never met him.
Yeah.
He lives somewhere in New York, but went to them. Like I said, spent a couple hours with them. She had cookies. That's vaguely all I remember. I remember walked into the room and saw the music box.
Yeah.
I don't know if Annabelle was there. I think she was, but I don't remember it. But I didn't know Amityville had happened, but they hadn't gone really public with it yet. This would have
Right.
been around 1979 or 80,
Yeah.
and that was it. And my dad picked me up a couple hours later, and we went home and back to West Virginia. And I had no clue how famous they were or anything for a decade. And then I think it was I think I knew a little bit because when I saw him on Mike Douglas, I'm like, hey, that's the couple.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Well, and it's again that time when, we had to find our information through magazines that would show up. And so that became the legitimate aspect of it, right? Seeing
Right.
photos and reading things and then using our own mind's eye to kind of visualize that. I remember vividly, I lived in Atlanta around this time.
Oh,
So Bigfoot was everywhere that anytime
yeah.
I went in the woods, I was like, I knew I was going to run into a squatch, which terrified me, especially because of that in search of episode. And then there
Or,
was a movie that came out called Sasquatch that I
yeah.
went to go see, and um but there was that. And then I remember getting one night we decided, I think this is around Close Encounters. Um oh, what's the name of the couple that were abducted? The Hill couple.
Oh, the Betty and Barney Hill. Yeah.
Right. So you read about that. And I remember going to see Close Encounters, right? Which is the complete other side of Star Wars. And for a UFO kid,
Yeah.
the Holy Grail, right? And then on the way home, I remember my mom saying, "Oh, I think I would go with the aliens." And I got terrified. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
She didn't know it. She was saying something flip, not
Oh,
realizing
yeah.
I'm expecting her to be abducted.
Gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I think it was that weekend or the weekend after, my best friend and he lived across the street. He had the woods were his backyard.
Uh,
And we decided to spend the night out in a tent and look for UFOs. And at the same time, there was a movie that had come out called Prophecy
oh my gosh.
that
Wow.
that I never saw the movie. All I saw was the ad about
Ad.
this
Yep.
thing and the embryo, this giant mutated bear or whatever it was. So that looking for aliens, listening to a little radio out in the woods, hearing things move, probably is the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. I mean, there are other things, but like
Yeah.
that,
But
I didn't see anything, but it was just that
oh,
that
that.
that perfect combination of fear, chili.
Yeah. No,
Right?
we used to go that farmland. We had the big fancy trailer where my folks had, we had cable, we had internet. That was
Yeah.
roughing it. We only had 6 channels there. Yeah. um, but we had a little airstream down in the holler. It was actually an old baseball field that had been so it was clear, and again, dark sky territory, so you could see millions of stars that you didn't see back in Charleston where we lived. But um, that was my campground. We had fires in an old
Yeah.
bus wheel. Of course, my dad had bus stuff everywhere. And I'd bring my friends from the city out there, and we would sit there and tell ghost stories all night and scare ourselves silly. We had radio. We could pick up WLW out of Cincinnati, and it would play old time radio dramas at night. So we'd listen to, and Lights Out and The
Uh,
Shadow, and then One Step Beyond, and
yeah.
all that. And every once in a while they'd play Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, which I didn't like at the time, but now I love it.
Yeah. Funny.
I wanted monsters. I wanted scary.
Sure.
Their names are legendary. Their creations have haunted your nightmares. And they all have one thing in common. They love monsters.
Available on Amazon Prime and Roku.
So
But
that's your childhood, right?
yeah,
So then from there, you're one of the few people that I've met that worked at Terror, but worked before I was there. And I don't even think we met at Terror. I think you were gone by
no,
the time I got there.
yeah,
You
I
were
was
there
there
with
for a
the
hot minute.
you were there with the original Terror on Church Street, which was before David Clevenger got there, I think.
Yeah, I
But
think because I don't remember David. I met him years later, but I didn't
yeah,
remember him at Terror. I didn't remember any of the people that I was there. Maybe I want to say like 6 weeks or
yeah,
to 8 weeks. I wasn't there long because I got hired by Disney right about that time.
yeah,
So I had to give up Terror because
yeah,
Disney had benefits.
yeah.
As much as I love Terror on Church Street, but I was there for the day that Anthony Perkins came in and filmed the promos, and he was super nice. I was, fanboying like crazy. Because remember, this is before conventions, gang. We
Sure.
were flipped out if we bumped into a celebrity. It was,
Yeah. especially in Orlando, Florida.
Orlando, yeah, of all things. I mean, we were starting to realize that a lot of the celebrities were retiring to Florida, and
Yeah.
because they were opening the studios, because I think
Yeah.
this was right around MGM and Universal
Well, and
building.
Hollywood East, remember that?
Hollywood East, yeah, they were really trying to pitch that, and I started working for a couple production companies doing audio. And yeah, no, Terror was a lot of fun. It's a great haunt. I'm sad it's gone.
Yeah.
That building was super creepy,
Yeah.
and we've discussed that before. That
Yeah.
there was something going on there.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's funny. Everybody that has worked at Terror, it's like, yep, and people go, yeah, sure. And I'm like, no, you don't understand it.
uh,
Whatever, whatever the combination of what was built there and what was done there attracted something that stayed there and affected people that were in that building. Um,
yeah, it,
Now you were in the original design though before David redid it, so you actually had, if I'm not mistaken, the original crew that was kind of from Spain, because there's still a terror on church or a terror in Spain
yeah,
still open, but they came in and they were like, oh, we want a graveyard, bring in dirt, not realizing like, no, these needs to be sets. It was
that's
no, these
yeah.
are
No,
real
they
crypts
they
and
had a real. I know they had a skeleton that was real. They had
yeah,
gotten from a medical supply company
yeah,
because I remember seeing that going, wait, that ain't plastic.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, but obviously you loved the haunt environment, right? You
Oh,
loved
that
part of it. Yeah.
yeah, I remember childhood in Ohio and West Virginia. There was always a JC's haunt because that was how they kept Devil's Night from happening, or when the evil nights, because if they could get all the teenage kids to go to a place, they could
Yeah.
keep them corralled, they could keep an eye on them. That's why the JCs started doing these haunts, gang. That's
Yeah.
where they come from, and that's was in our town. So we would go to the spooky house that had like 3 floors. That was the old abandoned house in town. It really was an old abandoned house that they
Yeah.
put a haunt on in. It was
Yeah.
just it's what we did. No safety rules, no nothing. Those were scarier than anything
Oh
that
yeah.
would do today. But that stuck with me, along with my love of the paranormal and ghosts. And again, growing up, the other thing that stuck with me was as a nerd, I could watch 2 shows in West Virginia. There were 2 shows. They were back to back on different channels. Was Dark Shadows and then Doctor Who.
Oh wow.
So, and my grandmother was pretty blind and pretty deaf by this point. She lived with us, and she loved General Hospital. So after I would get out of school, I would run home. She would make me watch General Hospital, and then I had to act it back out to her, which is where I started getting my acting chops.
That's
And
amazing.
I had to do, I really got good at that, the double take,
Yeah,
which is
sure.
and only if you knew how I really felt, and then you go, I got really good at that, where he's looking at the camera to let you know.
Yeah.
But what I secretly did was I watched Dark Shadows and Doctor Who with her all together, and then I just acted out General Hospital to her.
Oh wow.
So, but she didn't know that I'd snuck in these other 2 shows that I wasn't supposed to be watching.
So she didn't realize the General Hospital wasn't 2 hours long.
Yeah, and she also
Half
didn't
hours
realize
long.
that Barnabas wasn't on General Hospital.
Yeah.
But
Who's that one? Who's the high guy in the hospital that has the accent?
yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, she couldn't hear well, so that was the whole point. I got to
there you
act
go.
it back.
Yeah,
But it was that so I fell in love with Dark Shadows and all that, and that was growing up. But then, like I said, Terror. That was about the time I started really getting into haunted houses.
yeah.
And I was still writing a little bit at the time. I'd been writing through high school. I submitted to a few fan magazines. My pride and joy was my first real publication was in an old issue of Dragon magazine from TSR.
Oh wow, Dragon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then we were getting into the 80s, early college 90s when I did Terror,
Yeah.
and I was writing for Knights of the Dinner Table, which was a comic book that's still around. Oh my
Really?
gosh, the longest independently run comic. I think Spawn maybe, but this is a one creator guy did this. But I would write little gaming articles and stuff. But I'd kind of gotten out of the paranormal. I still loved it, but I wasn't writing about it. I wasn't doing much in it. and I got into haunting. And that's about the time, I would say it was like 92. I was working on Superboy and Superforce on Hollywood East, and I was doing, and I became a dad
Yeah.
and got married and did the day job thing, worked for the Mouse, then worked for Mouse store, went to the Disney store. And all this time I was like, oh, I'll just do stuff. And that's one night I went to a Halloween Horror Nights audition, and just for fun, because I'd been every year since the beginning, since it
Yeah.
was what, Fright Nights,
Yeah.
whenever the
Fright
Fright
Nights,
Nights.
91 or 92. Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw a guy dressed as Darkman. And I was like, they have the Darkman costume here. As the
Yeah.
Sam Raimi fan in me was like, oh my gosh, I've got to be part of that. So the
Yeah.
next year I auditioned, and I think that's when you got me in, because that
Yeah.
was when I met you in the flesh, I guess. Uh,
Yeah, because I had been. What's funny is I got my start at Universal. I moved to Orlando to work at the old Mark II Dinner Theater, which was a
oh yeah,
yeah. So they would do musicals and comedies and farces, and so I moved there for a year just to go, okay, I've got a job for this. I don't know, I think it was 6 weeks. And then I'll just rent an apartment for a year because this is where all the production's going, right? So
that's
I kept
I did
going
the same
down
thing.
there and I would get production assistant jobs and I had done some stuff and then I got hired from the Mark II Dinner Theater. David Clevenger came to see the show, and the director introduced him because he knew I was a movie nut and a horror
Right.
movie nut. And then David hired me, and then I got hired at Universal. So I would work all day at Universal, then all night at Terror. And then Halloween came around, and I auditioned for it, and I got to be Norman Bates, which was out by the Bates house in the
Yeah,
motel for Psycho 4. And then just kind of moved up that way because I knew a lot about horror. I was a product of that, just my fandom of it. But it's interesting that those early days at Halloween Horror Nights,
yeah.
it's like, of course we'll have Darkman. That's a Universal movie.
Why not?
We'll
Yeah,
have they'll have the classic. I remember for the first couple of years, well, I was still just acting, and then I moved into writing and stuff. But they had the monsters
yeah.
going around. Herman and Grandpa and
I recalled those early days. They had like characters in the rides
yeah, oh yeah,
during those early ones, because I remember going through King Kong. There was somebody being murdered in one of the windows of the skyscrapers in
yeah,
King Kong, and then Darkman
yeah.
jumped, and that was when I saw Dark. Oh, was that Darkman?
Yeah, well, so it's funny because when I was a Ghostbuster and we would go into Earth or not Earthquake, King Kong, and
Yeah,
people would look down, we would be down there, with our proton packs going, anybody
yeah,
see an ape? And it's funny because in 99 when we did Jack, the icon Jack, we had these things called Jack attacks because they had stopped putting stuff in the rides and we were like, this year we're going to put Jack everywhere. So Jack came out at the end of Earthquake before
nice.
and then Jack was in the boathouse at Jaws. It was so much
See,
fun.
that's more. That was cool. That made the whole park seem
Well, it just
alive
felt
with
like,
horror.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It
So,
also made it worth going to the rides instead of just going to the haunts.
yeah. So tell me now, you went to Halloween Horror Nights,
Yep.
you're doing the production stuff. What made you leap go, okay, I'm going to do one. I want to tell my own story. I want to create my own experience called Hellview.
I became a dad again.
Mhm.
My second child was born, and I suddenly was like, I can't drive to Orlando. I was in Tampa Bay at the time. I can't drive to Orlando every night, leave my young wife at home with a young daughter and now a baby, and go have fun at Horror Nights for fun. I mean, I was still at the day job on top of that. So I was like, nope, can't do that anymore. But I love Halloween. We'll just build a nice display out front. So we built a Blair Witch was big that year.
Mhm.
I think it had just come out, and I knew Charlie Carlson, who had wrote Weird Florida back in the day. He was a guy I was in, again, correspondence with, and he was telling me some of the legends that Blair Witch was actually based on,
Yeah.
and it's a Florida legend. And I was just so happy that we were getting this. And of course, the Blair Witch team was an Orlando theme. So I was
Sure.
like, okay, well, we'll do the Florida version of it. So I made the stick figures. We made the tent. We put some red eyes in it because I'm fascinated by red eyes. I always think
Sure.
that's the cool thing. And we put that up, and we got on the news. It was a tent and some stick figures. And
Yeah.
I think I had my young daughter put her handprints all over the front of the house because that was an important thing in the movie. And I'm like, man, I did that in 4 hours. I wonder if I put some of my theatrical skills to this, if I could do some more, I could really do something nice. And a couple of my friends were super awesome construction guys, and they were like, "Oh yeah, let's next year let's build a graveyard." So we built a graveyard, and again, from that Spanish Terra on Church Street, instead of making fake graves, we dug graves. And
Yeah.
my yard, I didn't care. It's my yard. I don't care about my yard. And we dug a hole, and while we were digging the hole, we found bones. And we freaked out because it's like, oh gosh, we've discovered a crime scene or something like that. We called the cops. Cops came and said, no, not a crime. It's antiquity. So we need to get somebody else here. So his St. Pete Junior College at the time, it's now St. Pete College, but they sent
Hold on. It's
yeah.
not a crime scene, it's antiquity.
Yeah.
So, but it was human remains.
They thought it was human. They
Oh
thought
my,
it was human.
oh my
So they
God.
come here, and the
You moved
archaeologist.
the headstones, but you didn't
That's
move
exactly
the
what
body.
I'm saying. So the archaeologist comes and he does a quick little survey. He's like, "Oh no, it's shark. It's shark bones and maybe some gator." And we're obviously on a shell midden, which the Tocobagas put their garbage everywhere in these big mounds, just like we do. We make landfills. They made landfills, and they probably bulldozed it when they built the house, and they just left this sediment here. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. It's Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm just glad it wasn't one of the lost cemeteries. And I'm like, lost cemetery? How do I not know about this? And he's like, oh, Tampa Bay has dozens of lost cemeteries that people just built over settler cemeteries, slave cemeteries, all this other stuff. I didn't know that. So that suddenly my head went boom. All that paranormal research, all that stuff I read as a kid, it's like it's home now.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, no more Blair Witch, no more Freddy Jason, no more any of that. I want the real stuff. I want real history, real folklore. And we've got a name for our cemetery because one of the lost cemeteries of Tampa Bay is called Hillview Cemetery. And I said, we found it. It's
Yeah.
Hillview, but with a slash across the eye. So it's
Sure.
Hellview.
Yeah.
Boom. The Tales from the Crypt fan was very happy in me. So,
That's great. So what year was this? The transition from becoming
okay.
the real Florida version of the Blair Witch to
Yeah.
cemetery to okay, now it has a concept, it has a storyline behind it. What year was this?
So this had to be the year we did was around 2000. I
2000,
want
yeah.
to say it was like 1999. We did the Blair Witch.
Right.
I think we did Pirates of the Caribbean. We made a big pirate ship one year. So before we got to walkthrough stage, the cemetery started around the pirate ship time. So that had to be whatever year Pirates of the Caribbean was.
Yeah.
And then the next year, we built the giant cemetery, but we still had the pirate ship that we'd worked so hard on, and we had it in the backyard. So I was like, oh well, let's let people walk through the backyard and come around the front yard, so it can be just like a quick walk around. And then suddenly that hit, and it hit huge, and we were suddenly again on the news again. And it's like, man, we did this in a few hours. What did we do if we built it for a day?
Right.
And that was the start. And then it became, well, what if we build it for a week? What if we build it for a month? And suddenly we had a full walkthrough. And I think we talked to Leonard Pickle at HauntCon that year. Whenever it was the HauntCon year in Orlando, I can probably Google that and find out what year that was. That was the year we went full. We're like making this a full haunt. We already had people donating every year. We took Child's Play was our charity. My oldest daughter had to have heart surgery and was in the children's hospital at the time. And I was working for GameStop as the day job. And I had a new DS that had just come out. The Nintendo DS had come out, and my daughter was playing it. She had gotten to play it while she was recovering, and all the kids in that ICU were staring at her playing this game, and I felt bad they all didn't have one. And then I found out about Child's Play, which was this charity that buys toys and games for children's hospitals. Boom, that became Hellview's charity, and
Wow.
and so that was we became a charity haunt, and we donated every dollar to charity except we had one bucket that said pay our electric bill. and and man, that bucket filled up fast. It was really nice. So
Wait. So how many years did Hellview exist?
a long time, because we didn't get shut down till 2016.
Wow.
2016 was our last Halloween. We got shut down in 2017.
Did you ever track how much you were able to collect
Oh
for
yeah, yeah. No, we kept very accurate records for it. What we did was we first year it was Child's Play, and then the little bucket for lights on.
Sure.
That we made almost $2,000 that first year, and that
Wow.
was a home haunt, gang. This is a
Yeah, yeah.
backyard haunt, and then it just kept growing and growing. And the last year we did it, 2016, we had over 10,000 people come through my backyard. It's a 1,500 square foot yard in the middle of St. Petersburg, Florida. No wonder we got shut down, gang, right? But we made almost $20,000 for Child's Play that year.
That's
We had a
great.
local charity too,
Yeah.
called Kind Mouse, that we did as well. So
That's amazing.
it was incredible. I couldn't believe we kept adding a charity. We had a bucket that was Child's Play. We had a bucket that was we didn't what some people wanted an animal charity, so we got the Bat Conservancy, International Bat Conservancy.
Yeah.
And then we'd have another bucket for the house still. I admit I started using it to pay property taxes and electric bill, and also to feed the cast. This is all volunteer cast. This is
Sure.
all volunteer. And again, all for charity. And we didn't charge admission. We just had buckets at the end. Throw what you feel like at the end. We did that, and
Wow.
it was incredible. I miss it very much, but it was a young man's game. I'll say that.
Well, it's interesting now. You say home haunt, right?
Yeah.
You and I have come up in this time that okay, it started off. It was called a haunted house when the JCs did it.
Yeah. Yep.
Haunted house because it felt like a real haunted house.
Yeah.
And then when I got into it on a professional level, it started out as called mazes, right? And then because there was this idea that you're going to go in, and what's worse than than getting lost. And the idea was it's almost like the opening or the precursor to the escape rooms. You're going through this environment, and we're not going to show you the way out. You're going to have to figure
Right.
it out. And then it got popular, and then the operations group said, well, it can't be a maze. We've got to get 1,500 people through an hour or what have you. Throughput. And then it stopped being called mazes, and then it went back to haunted houses, and then the word haunt came. But along with that, there are the home haunt is now a major thing in the United States. And it's interesting to me because there are things like HauntCon and Leonard Pickle, who I just celebrated his birthday with him last week, and
Oh, awesome.
yeah, and we were talking, and it's so fascinating to me to where the industry has gone, and it's now too, like, you can do these kind of things, except sometimes they get a little too legitimate.
Well, yep. And that was
yeah.
that with Leonard. He actually came to help you. I want to say one of our the last few years we were doing it. He came one day, and we found out. I saw him coming up in the line. So he was visiting, I think, Busch Gardens, Alice Green, which is
Yeah.
across the river across the bay from us. And he came over, and I saw him, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Leonard. And so once he came up, I told everybody in the haunt. I had my security guys go through. We had security, we had firemen, we had all the things to make sure we were good. I sent them through and said, tell everybody, no holds barred on this next guy. Just get him. And he was floored. He came out, and I was like, so what'd you think? And he's just like, I have no words.
Yeah.
This is a house? And I'm like, you never touch the house. That whole maze goes
Oh,
up in
backyard, yeah.
August and comes down in November. And he was like, I thought I was in a house. I was like, I'm using your design secrets, sir. You
Yeah.
know, I know the line, put
Yeah.
a bunting around the top and people don't realize there's no roof. And
Right.
because the eye line stops. And we did a pit, which you can't dig very much in Florida. You start hitting water. We found that out the year we dug the cemetery, but we put mirrors on the ground and built
Sure.
up 2 stories. So when you're walking through this, what you thought was a bottomless pit was a mirror effect. Worked great. And then we did a teleport with mirrors where you see the guy at the end of the hall and there's the coffin next to you and he's standing there at the end of the coffin. And then as you take a step, he jumps out beside you because the mirror was reflecting him.
Yeah.
Works great. Oh my God. Those scares are timeless.
That's one of my
We had
favorite
to build,
scares.
we had to build conga line that we
Yeah.
did that from day one, just because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, we got to keep people going. And as soon as it got more and more crowded, it was, we got to do this.
Yeah.
The other big thing I was very happy we did early on was we wanted to make sure kids could come because I remembered it as a kid.
Yeah.
So we did a thing called the Scooby-Doo tour, we called it. And what that was is we had some kids who were just early days of cosplay. They would dress up as friendly characters like Spider-Man or,
Yeah.
we had I remember Gravity Falls was big one year. So we had the kids from Gravity Falls, a couple cosplayers that, and they would carry a flashlight. Years later, we had them carry a Minecraft torch because Minecraft torches keep the monsters at bay. But they would go through and they would say Scooby Doo, and they would let the kids say Scooby Doo. And if they said that, the monsters wouldn't scare them. But they
Right.
could still walk through the house. The monsters would kind of just, like that and be more afraid of them. And that way they didn't have jump scares. But we did that so that kids could have fun with it. Right.
Yeah.
And I know some haunts do that, hours early and stuff like that, but we made sure that it could be at any time. So we could do that. I love that. And I wish more haunts did that. So,
Well, I mean, again, it's a lot of haunts it's financial,
oh,
right?
no, I agree. I'm just saying
No,
smaller
well, it's interesting to me. I went to a JC's haunted house once
Oh, wow.
and didn't get to go through.
Huh.
And I can't believe I'm telling the story, but it was my first time. Like I lived in Tampa when I was young.
Mm.
So I was probably, I think I was 6. Anyway, I looked this up. I went to the old newspaper and looked in the 70s, like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
what year was that? And because I was a nut for Dr. Paul Bearer
Heck yeah.
and they were talking, it was his on his creature feature weekly show. And he was like, this weekend, I'm going to be at the JC's haunted house. I'll be lurking for, that whole shtick.
Yep.
I'm like, oh wow. And my mom heard it. She's like, do you want to go to that? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, And so the day of, we get in the car and we're going and I'm like, I'm going to a haunted house. And then it kind of started to sink in on little 6-year-old Michael.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. And then we got there and I remember pulling up and this is what's in my mind is that it was this massive Bates Motel Gothic Edward
Yes.
Gorey house. I'm sure it wasn't, but it looked like it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And we parked and we're walking. And then as we walk by, this is what my brain saw. Okay. Well, this is what I really saw. I
Yeah.
walked by and some guy jumped out as Lon Chaney's Wolfman. He had the Don Post.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, rah, right? And I'm like, oh, in my mind, what I saw is the Wolfman jumped out and ripped somebody apart right in front of me.
Yep.
I just said, I don't want to go. And my dad was like, all right.
Yeah.
Like,
Save us
we got back
$5.
in the car. We got back in the car, and that was it. And that to this day, with the haunts I've always done, I remember that, and I want to help those kids that like could have enjoyed it if somebody had just been like, okay, let's slow you into this,
I'll never forget one year right when we first started doing this, and that's what cemented it that we had to keep doing this, was this one guy came through with his 4-year-old daughter, and she was terrified, and we're like, we'll do the Scooby-Doo because the dad really wanted to see it, the mom really wanted to see it, and I'm like, we'll do Scooby-Doo, trust me, we'll even make it even minor. I'll make sure none of the monsters jump out
Right.
or even are in there. She went through, she came out so excited. She wanted to do it again, not Scooby-Doo,
Right.
immediately.
Right.
And so we did a second. We didn't, like I said, we weren't charging admission. People could come
Yeah.
through as often as they wanted.
Yeah.
We would limit it if the teenage boys or teenage girls were getting a little rowdy and stuff. But private property, you can get away with a lot. But the little girl went through again with her mom, and she came out giggling so hard. And then she's like, "Can I go through alone?" And we're like, "Well, you're 4 years old. I don't know if that's okay,
No.
but we'll let somebody go through with you. We'll be behind you and let you go." And she came back, loved it, and she came back every year. She eventually became an actor in Hellview a few years later. So
That's the
she was like
best.
9,
Yeah.
and that was great. So it was
Well,
fun watching them grow up.
it's interesting too, as like with Halloween Horror Nights and then ultimately some other haunts I've worked in, it always is a head scratcher to me when you see infants being brought in. What? You know?
I remember seeing infants brought into uh, aliens and Starship Troopers. There were parents bringing in their kids. I'm like, these are loud ass movies, and I'm like, well, there's a 4-year-old sitting there, but I'm like, yeah, but then my dad took me to see quite a few things that I shouldn't have seen when I
Oh
was.
no, but I'm just saying from a noise standpoint, and
Oh
like
yeah,
having children myself, I'm like, well, you're not going to sleep tonight because you've just overstimulated that child.
yeah. For
And now you see comfort dogs being brought into haunts, which I'm like,
yeah.
you probably shouldn't come to this.
No, yeah, this is
If
not
you
for
need a
you.
comfort
Yeah.
dog, you shouldn't bring your comfort dog to a haunted house.
No, no comfort dog. If you need a comfort dog, you shouldn't be going to a haunted house. So sad, sad.
What I mean,
Yeah,
based on what I know, I could be
yeah,
wrong. I don't want anybody to get mad
yeah,
at me.
yeah. Please note. I don't need any bad emails about
Right.
your comfort dog. That your
So,
comfort dog needs a haunt.
yeah,
But yeah, no. So we did Hellview for a while. We got to permit it. We did it right. We got a city event permit every year. We had the mayor would come out. He would bring the Chamber of Commerce on a flatbed truck. They would close our street. It was all wonderful. One year we got protested by the Westboro Baptists. That was awesome. One year we got protested by clowns, which is probably the best year we could have ever had for advertising. That's the year we exploded.
yeah,
Again, I didn't want to do clowns because I couldn't find any folklore history because that was my Hellview was based on folklore and history. Instead
right,
of a werewolf jump out at you, we had the skunk ape jump out at you.
right.
If we did have a werewolf, it was some historical folklore werewolf like Beast de Gévaudan or something like that. Now, people going through the haunt, probably 90% of them didn't know what the hell was going on. Just something jumped out at them, scared them, and they moved on. But if you went to our website,
Yeah,
which was big in the day, this was early days of internet. We
yeah.
had a GeoCities website with an AOL address. That'll tell you how old this was. And you could read the stories of our characters and the stories of the haunt. And we had a little submit your story if you wanted to let me know ghost stories. And that's where that all started, getting the local stuff.
So
Um,
it's interesting you bring that up because, I don't know if you know this or not, but with Halloween Horror Nights, that kind of stuff was what we were like, okay, this is a way we can tell the stories of these haunts. We
yeah,
had few videos, which we love doing, but again, you know, we wanted, if you wanted to take the next step, like you said, 90%, I'd say maybe less than that, like 80% probably didn't know what was going on.
yeah.
We're just like, oh, I'm getting scared. But for that 20% who wanted to take that step, it was like, oh my gosh, did you see this? Did you see that? And
Mm.
that's where you can really create that experience that stays with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, we'd have people come back and go, "Hey, is cousin Earl going to be here this year, or the Blackwater clan going to be back this year?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then one year I discovered there was a circus fire in St. Petersburg, and I'm like, "Oh, now I got my clown story. We can
Yeah.
finally," because people every exit survey was, "We want clowns, we want clowns," and I'm like, "Ah,
Well, I was doing that up in Orlando. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, you guys were
well,
doing that plenty up there."
Well, but that's the thing though, is like we created, again, there wasn't like a really horrific clown story in
Yep.
mythology, right? So we created mythology for it, whereas
Yeah.
you did the due diligence, and I think that's just a natural progression too. You would get these real accounts, your love of cryptids, your love of the things that could really be out there or are really out there. So then that translates. Tell me how that moved you into, okay, I want to be the keeper of these stories. I want to have a collection where people can come and, I mean, you're one of the leading experts, and the books are
I,
fantastic. So how did that happen?
well, I don't like to say expert because nobody's an expert at paranormal. If they say you're a Bigfoot expert or
Well
UFO expert,
spoken. How about that? Well
yeah,
spoken.
just well read, well
Well,
read, well
okay.
researched. I'll say
Okay.
that.
All right.
Because you get that expert tattoo on your forehead and it never goes away.
Yeah.
But it's one of those. What happened was I was getting all these stories. People were sending me spooky stories, and I would throw them into the haunt, and we would hell view them up. I called it, where we'd make them spookier. And then one year, somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, hey, you did this. I see you did a thing from this creepy pasta." And I'm like, "What the hell's creepy pasta?" And I found out it was a website that was like a Wikipedia for urban legends. And somebody had copy pasted almost our entire website into that and gave us no credit for it. So I'm like, oh man, this sucks. So I published our website stories as a book, a self pub. This is the early days of self pub too. This new thing called Amazon, was out, and we could do this. And I made a book of our Hellview stories, and that way I'm like, hey, it's slabbed down, but they were the Hellview versions,
Right.
and we sold it at the haunt. It was another way to make a little money for the house,
Sure.
and I didn't expect it to really do well, but it took off. People loved buying them. Again, the year we closed like 2 years later. And so we were stuck with all these stories. And that's when I know a lot of people said they wanted the real stories, not these Hellview versions. And so I did a second book, which I called it Tales of Terror Tampa Bay. The first one was 31 Tales of Hellview Cemetery. The second was Tales of Terror Tampa Bay, and it had the Hellview version and then a quick little like paragraph of the original. And then History Press approached me and said, "Hey, would you mind doing a real version of this, just with just those real stories and flesh them out?" And I'm like, "Sure. I've got this many stories." And they're like, "No, no, no. We need this many stories." So, and then we got shut down. So I was like, "Oh man, I've got all these stories. What am I going to do? I'll do that book History Press asked me for." So my lovely wife, Carrie Schultz, and I drove all around Florida. We wanted to make sure every place we wrote about was still there. I had worked with Charlie Carlson years before when he was doing Weird Florida. I sent him some stories. He sent me some stories. We were pen pals. And I actually pitched this as a sequel to Weird Florida with him. But he was getting up there. He was saying, "No more. I'm not doing this anymore." He passed away shortly thereafter. But he said, "Hey, carry it on. Keep the torch going." So we did Eerie, Florida. We traveled 7,000 miles, never left the state, got all these stories. We've narrowed it down to like a top 20. And Robert the Doll, of course, made the cut. Skunk Ape made the cut. The Gulf Breeze UFOs made the cut. We really tried. And then I threw in, a couple oddball stories because I wanted to see if anybody else knew about them. And then it hit big. And it was History Press's first bestseller that was not written by a politician. And, and, uh, and they suddenly said, "Hey, remember how you said you had all those other stories? Could you do a second book real quick?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Sure." And we hit the van, another 10,000 miles. Second book, Freaky Florida, came out. Again, bestseller list. And this time, History Press used us to get into CVS and Walgreens and Cracker Barrel. And you're famous when you're Cracker Barrel famous. And I was suddenly doing Coast to Coast AM, a show I used to listen to late at night in West Virginia with Art Bell, but now it was with George Norrie, and it was still the same show. My mind was blown. I'm suddenly doing this, and then the next thing you know, Discovery Channel calls. They want me on a documentary. What? This is I'm a ghost storyteller. What? Why now I'm on a documentary? And then I did a Bigfoot documentary, and then suddenly I'm on a show in Germany talking about Spook Hill, and in the middle of Lake Wales, Florida, and it was like, where is this? And then that's the footage they use for Ancient Aliens, was
Yeah.
something from that interview. They cut like a minute out of it and put me on Ancient Aliens. I didn't get paid for that, but they did. But it's okay. Suddenly I'm selling more books because I'm on
Yeah.
Ancient Aliens and all that. It's all feeds and feeds and feeds. And so I missed Hellview, but it was a new world. A whole new world
Yeah.
opened up. And now this is what I've been doing. And and all this, I'm an epileptic, gang. I have transient epileptic amnesia. I'm really good at recalling this old stuff, but I have really tough time making new memories. So if I'm in one of my cloudy weeks or cloudy months, sometimes it's tough. And so as I've gotten older, that's gotten worse. So I don't know if I could do haunting as much as I'd love to anymore, but it's there. I love it. I love going to haunts, and I love talking haunts,
Yeah.
and now I'm sharing it into books. So
Yeah. Oh, so then there were 4 Florida books or 3,
there were 3 Florida books:
right?
Eerie, Florida, Freaky, Florida, and Creepy, Florida.
Right. And then
Creepy
you moved
was
out of the state.
Yeah. Then they finally let me out of the state. Creepy, I was working on a couple, consulting on some of the ghost shows. I was consulting on Ghost Hunters,
Right.
and so that's why I did that. One is all paranormal locations. They wanted a
Right.
ghost book.
Right.
Uh, and then they finally let me out of the state. I said, please let me go back to West Virginia and Kentucky. I've got all these stories.
Yeah.
And 2020, they let us do Eerie Appalachia, which was the pitch was the whole Appalachian Trail, folklore, legends, spooky stuff. And we did. And it hit just as big. Very,
Yeah.
very happy. Again, Coast to Coast AM, a couple other things. And that's when podcasts had taken off by then. And I got begged to do one, and I said, okay, finally. I'd been on over, I think, 500 and some odd podcasts in a
Yeah.
month
Yeah.
one year. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I realized I'd done over 2,000 podcast appearances. It's like, okay, now I've got to actually do my own. That's fine. But Erica Lance, my co host and the wonderful CEO of Four Horsemen Publications, she became my comic relief because she became the everyman. I
Yeah.
know this really in-depth, crazy stuff. Like you said, I'm a history buff, so I get really into the history stuff. But she can keep me on track, and she can be the hey, stop! You don't need to know about this general that attacked this flank on this day. Tell us the ghost story. So, and it works, and that's we've been doing that for a couple of years now, and it's
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
successful. We were
the show's great. I mean, I've been a guest on your show,
yeah.
and we both love Erica. I mean, you
Oh,
know,
she's
yeah,
she's a
she
doll.
and what's funny is I almost wish there was a way to do some video podcasts with you guys where you actually go to an investigation, because I
Yeah,
love to see the dynamic of you and her. I mean, there's like
yeah.
a Hope Crosby thing that
Oh, it's totally it's a perfect dichotomy.
yeah,
That's why I love working with her because she is the nope, not going there, not doing it. Burn the
yeah,
house to the ground, nuke the site from orbit.
yeah,
That's her philosophy. And me, I want to see the story. I want to know what's
yeah,
underneath. I've talked to so many native historians and Cherokee folk tellers and Seminole storytellers, and to them, supernatural is just natural. It's there.
right,
We walk with our ancestors. Haunted object like Robert the Doll, that could be our friend. That could be your family. That they don't think of these things as negative. That's
right,
us. We brought
right,
that from Europe. We bring that from all our cultures. And so that's why I feel like that way. I'm like, they're not negative. I mean, there's people who are jerks in life. They might be jerks in the afterlife. There is negative stuff out there. Not saying that, but I'm just saying, what are the odds? Right?
yeah,
That's why we should know if it's good or bad. They're just trying to communicate or something like that. And that's
yeah,
me. I want to know. I want to hear your stories. I'm not a Bigfoot hunter. I'm not a ghost hunter, not a UFO hunter, but I go with Bigfoot hunters, ghost hunters, and UFO hunters to get their stories and to see what they're finding. And that's what I just there to document.
yeah.
I'm like a journalist keeping the notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also you can interpret those stories and really create them as compelling.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the coolest things about your books, and just having just I mean being your friend, and we talk about it. Like I think we did a an investigation a couple of years ago at some place in Florida, I remember, and I just came and I just sat there and giggled watching you tell these stories, because there's a
Yeah.
you were an actor, you understand what you're talking about, plus the you haven't lost your childlike wonder about it, right? It's exciting and it gets everybody else amped up. So it's absolutely precious. So what's next? So Appalachian, now what?
Well, our next we did Dark Side of Smoky Mountains, which is our
Right?
new book. We did that one from Eerie Travels podcast, and since I wasn't tied to History Press, now I got through that contract. I'm probably still going to do some more for them in the future, but we're in the negotiating stage now because now I've got some pull. I got them into Cracker Barrel. Come on,
Yeah.
I did this one for Four Horsemen for Erica, and Erica was my co-author because again, epilepsy, it's getting a little tougher
Yeah,
for
sure.
me. So had to bring on a pinch hitter. But Erica's the comic relief. But we also got to put like things that weren't historical, things that were just cool. We got to put in haunted attractions. We got to put in horror themed locations that were like Aretha Frankenstein's in Knoxville. And, we got to put in things like that Ripley's haunted attraction or the Gallenberg Mysterious Mansion. That
Mhm.
technically is historical, but, we got to have more
Oh,
fun
I
with it.
love that haunt. I love that haunt.
Love that haunt. We were just there a few
Yeah.
nights ago. It's still the best.
Yeah.
And it's just that's part of the fun is we get to do that now with this. And so we made it a full road trip guide. We got to put in cool hotels, haunted hotels, but not so haunted, but we're still cool.
Yeah.
And it's a blast. I love that. So we're doing a follow up to that one already. And I'm wrapping it up hopefully soon. And that is Dark Heart of Appalachia. We're going up to
Ooh.
West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and a little bit of Virginia, where they all just kind of meet right
Yeah.
there. We're stretching a little bit so I can throw in like Hocking Hills and some other stuff in a little North Ohio. But oh man, that's a deep dive too. Just like Smoky Mountains was this deep dive over like 100-mile radius. This
Yeah.
is about 150-mile radius, and it's just as crazy. You got Mothman, Flatwoods, Grafton, all the classic monsters, and then you got so many UFO encounters. Of course, we got the Hatfield McCoy's history there, it's Civil
Yeah.
War history there. It's crazy the amount of monsters and holler legends and spooky stories. So I can't wait for that one. We're working on it. We're wrapping it up. And we just did the drive to make sure it could still be a roundabout thing. After that, we're probably going to go back to Florida for one more. I've got to tie up some loose ends there. I figure we'll do the Eerie Travels Presents Florida.
Yeah.
History Press has got me one more, I think, coming. So can't talk about
Good.
that yet. NDAs and all that fun stuff.
Of
I
course.
just did another documentary that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. But then I did film another thing for Small Town Monsters, which is a great YouTube channel. You should talk to Seth from Small
Okay.
Town Monsters. They make documentaries and documentary YouTube and Tubi and all this other stuff of major monsters like Minerva Monster and Big Old Muddy and Boggy Creek, stuff like the true stories of Boggy Creek and stuff.
Right.
They're doing one right now called In Search of Sasquatch in the Smokies. And
Oh,
say search for Sasquatch Smokies 3 times fast.
yeah.
And I'm doing the folklore part of it. I'm tying
Oh,
in the
that's
folklore to
great.
the history. So
Oh, that's great. Well, even to this day, Sasquatch terrifies me. And, ultimately, he terrifies me because a grizzly bear would terrify me,
oh yeah.
but also the fact that this entity seems to have an awareness where it doesn't want to be seen. That makes it that much more
And
spooky to me.
the Cherokee and the Choctaw say there were two, that there were two types. There was the friendly. These are of the Ninewe. The
Yeah.
Ninewe was they're like the Cherokee higher beings. Not to go into this rabbit hole, but I've got to say a little bit. They had two. There was the ones with the yellow eyes that were the good ones, and they would give them medicine bags, and they would trade with them and talk to them and all this. It was just something that was there. The old man of the woods, the wild man of the woods, and then there were the ones with the red eyes, and those were the bad ones. And it was
Damn
basically
it.
like they're fallen angels because
Uh,
they were like angels, and these were the fallen angels. And
yeah.
so that was to them, just stay away from the ones with the red eyes, and you were good. And so,
We should have t-shirts made of that. Stay
yeah,
away from red eyes, you'll be fine.
and exactly it goes back to my
I
red-eyed.
know, that's why, yeah.
I was like, I knew it. I
Yeah.
knew it.
You knew what you saw. Well, this has been an absolute joy. I would love to have you on again in the near future. And where can people check you out? What's a way to get in touch with you? What's a way to watch you? What's a way to share stories with you?
Really easy way is just eerietravels.com, has all the links. It's where you can find our podcast. Whenever I'm on a show, we link there. You can do the Eerie Travels YouTube, of course. We've our socials keep getting hacked or deleted. Twitter deleted us because a fan posted a thing that we mentioned on a show and it was a joke, but this is who knows, we got nuked. So I don't even like to mention socials. Just eerietravels.com. We'll keep that website forever. That'll link to everything. If you want to look up Hellview Cemetery, the old Hellview site's long gone. I think Internet Archive might have it. But if you just YouTube, my YouTube, Mark Muncy, I have some videos of Hellview back then. Of course, low quality, probably on my flip phone, but they're there. And yeah, just tune in. We're on twice a week on Eerie Travels. I don't think we've missed a week yet. So if I'm not there, Erica goes on without me. So it's all good.
I think I might have pinch hitted for you once.
I think you did. I think
Yeah.
you did. I was out one of my foggy months. It happens. So
Uh,
but thank you for doing that. And we'll have you back on too soon.
yeah. Well, Mark, thank you so much from the haunt community. Thank you for what you've done. Thanks for being a guest. We'll have you on again because I know you and I could talk all night about this.
Oh man, we didn't even go into horror hosts and any of that stuff because mine was Dr. Creep, and then I got to meet Dr. Paul Bearer later. But we'll get into that another time.
Now there's a new Dr. Paul Bearer who's great.
Richard's great.
Yeah,
Richard's great.
I finally got to meet him at there was a toy show where he was coming and he did his show live at this little comedy club.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, how and then we talked and I was like, I shared with him what the original meant to me and it's just great. So
yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
And I'll see you on the other side.
I'm author Mark Muncy.
And I'm author Erica Lance.
And this is Eerie Travels.
Greetings, travelers. Join us as we travel through folklore, myths, monsters, legends, and dark history.
Now, we'll be your guide to the spooky side of reality as we discuss cryptids, paranormal, and all things preternatural.
Sometimes we find the truth is way scarier than fiction.
We're on twice a week on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube.
We have amazing guests from all of the areas of the strange and unusual, including witnesses, investigators, and more.
Yeah, with Erica's curiosity and ridiculous array of pop culture and true crime knowledge.
And Mark's decades of experience diving into folklore and the legends with the truth that's behind them.
So join us, travelers, as we take you to the edge of reality, and we'll see you on the other side.
I am the maniac. Take heed. I am talking to you. And you. And you. If you dare tell anyone how this picture ends, if you dare reveal who the murderer really is, I'll climb into your bedroom window tonight and tear you limb from limb. I'll haunt you. Good night. Sleep tight.